Good afternoon. My name is Todd Cook. I am a civil litigator here at Beresford Booth. Welcome today to another one of our uh, webinar series. And I am a civil litigator here. I'm a member of both our litigation and our real estate practice group. And today I want to talk about an area where my two practice groups intersect, and that is in boundary disputes. And specifically, I want to talk about public resources for investigating boundary disputes. And the idea of this is at the beginning of a legal representation, we have an initial consult where we need to gather information from you. And that includes documents that relate to your property, legal documents, photos, historical photos, and things like that that relate to use of property. And you can either provide that information to us, or at the outset of a litigation, we're going to have to go investigate and find that sort of documentation on our own, which is going to increase legal fees. So the idea of this presentation is sharing some public resources with you that you can use to go out and obtain these documents and bring them into the initial consult, and thereby reduce the fees that you ultimately have to pay in the matter. So I want to cover three basic topics. The first two are really quick, and then the meat of the presentation is the third. So first, I want to just talk about what is a boundary dispute. Second, I want to talk about sort of what we're looking for at that initial consult in terms of documents that we want to collect from you. And then finally, I want to go through some public resources that we can use to gather that information that will help us understand your case. Okay, so a boundary dispute is a very prevalent type of litigation here in Washington. There are thousands of them going on all the time, it seems. And there's two major issues, and that is fighting about where the legal boundary line is between two properties. So someone may be arguing that the property lines should be adjusted to reflect some conduct over the years that should change legal ownership. Or there is a concept called an easement, which is an ownership of a property, but it is a right to use property. And so there are disputes about easement, whether they exist or not, whether someone has an easement. So the first kind of boundary line dispute, the biggest kind that we see, are adverse possession cases. Adverse possession is a doctrine in Washington law where someone can take ownership of a neighbor's property, essentially by becoming a squatter, taking possession of that property, and in an open and notorious way that everyone can see, but without permission, and having possession of it for 10 consecutive years, exclusive possession. At the end of that 10-year period, if you do that to your neighbor's property, you can end up petitioning the court in a quiet title action to find that you are now the legal owner of that property that you took possession of for 10 years. And then uh, and that would, if successful, adjust where the boundary line between the two properties lies. And then the second big area is easement disputes. So a prescriptive easement is essentially just the easement version of adverse possession. If one neighbor uses a piece of the neighbor's property for 10 years, and this is often in terms of like laying a utility line that goes through it, or using an access way, using a driveway, using a private road, something like that. And they do that without permission for 10 consecutive years. You can gain prescriptive easement rights, and then you can petition the court to have those rights recognized in the court, in the legal system. And then there's an implied easement, which is a similar concept, but an implied easement is where two adjoining properties were formerly one property, and they were subdivided in a manner where there wasn't an express easement created, but the parties intended to create some easement rights for one property over the other. And again, that is typically for access. So think of two properties that are on a main road. They're subdivided in half. So the back lot doesn't have any access to the road out to the world. And there could be an argument that there's an implied easement that that back property has a right to cross over the front property to access the rest of the world through the public road system. So those are some common types of boundary disputes that we litigate here a lot, and are very common in Washington State. So if you have one of these disputes and you end up talking to me or one of my colleagues in our litigation group here at Beresford Booth, we're going to have an initial consult and we're going to ask you for a bunch of documents, legal documents, and other evidence that you think supports your boundary line dispute. So um, some of the key documents that we're going to ask for right off the bat is your deed. You're going to have a deed that has a legal description in it. The legal description is words that legally describe the ground that you own. It's not your address. It is, a legal description of land that a surveyor could plot out and they say, okay, that's the land that you just acquired through this deed. So each deed will have a legal description. And then there could be an express easement. And an express easement is like a deed, but it is an agreement where one party agrees to give access rights or some right to use their property to the adjoining property holder. And then there are also things like covenants and restrictions. If you're in a homeowners association, you may have bought your property subject to covenants and restrictions that run with the land, and everyone in the homeowners association has to abide by. We're going to want all those documents at the outset of the case. So if you have those, that's wonderful, and you can provide them to us. But if you don't have them, we're going to have to go out and find them. And that's going to entail some legal cost of us investigating and finding those documents for you. Beyond those documents, we are going to, if we're going to litigate something, we're going to need evidence. So we're going to need evidence of where that legal description is on the ground. So that could be through a survey, that a surveyor goes out and surveys the land and puts in corner markers that mark where the corners of the property are. That could be through photos. And typically, when there's something that is adverse possession or prescriptive easement, we're going to need historical evidence. So historical photos, historical satellite imagery can be very helpful in building a case for adverse possession or prescriptive easement, or defending against a claim of adverse possession or prescriptive easement. So those are all documents and types of evidence that we're going to ask for you to provide at an initial consult. And if you don't have that, we're going to have to go out and find after the fact. So let's talk about how you can get those documents and types of evidence on your own so you can bring them to us and minimize the legal work that we have to do and the legal expense that you're going to have to incur at the outset of the dispute. So there's actually a couple private resources that you can go to first. And for legal documents, you should have them all through your closing. If you own property, you had a closing for that property where the seller conveyed the land to you by deed. That deed is recorded, so if you don't have a copy of it, we can get it. But you should have a copy of your deed and be able to provide it. Same with express easements. You may, at your closing, get copies of the express easements that you can keep on file and give to us, at that initial consult. Another area where you can find relevant documents is your title policy. If you had a mortgage, or if you have a mortgage, you financed your property, the bank is going to require you to get title insurance. And the title insurance insures the title that you own over the property, and therefore it also has a section called exceptions. And that exceptions section details all the limitations to your ownership rights. So that is typically lists of easements that are recorded against your property, covenants and restrictions that are recorded against your property, deeds of trust, things like that limit your ownership rights. And you should have all that from your closing. And then the last private resource is if your land has been surveyed before, there could be property markers already on the ground, and you can find those. You can take pictures of those and bring them into your initial consult. Um, but what if you don't have those? If you don't have those things, there are some public resources that we can go to find them. And I want to start out by talking about the GIS system. GIS is a system that is across the state of Washington. It's county specific. Every county has its own GIS system, and this is an online mapping system where actually each county typically has multiple GIS systems, different types of mapping systems that tell you different types of information. The one that we're most interested in at the beginning of a property dispute is the parcel viewer. There's a parcel viewer system in every county, and you can find information and link out to those documents if you don't have them. And you can also find oftentimes historic imagery, and sometimes they'll have tools that can be helpful in analyzing and putting together your claim for your property dispute. So they're county specific. Each county has a lot of them look very similar, but they're county specific. You have to go to the county that your property is located in, and then each county will have its own level of functionality. One thing to think about, and typically when you log on to one of these systems, they will tell you that they are informational only. So this is a great source of investigation and initial information, but typically during a lawsuit, we are ultimately going to need something more concrete, such as a survey from a surveyor. But where can you find these? Let's talk about a few examples and look at a few examples. And I practice primarily in King County and Snohomish County. Our office is located in Snohomish County. So let's talk about those two systems. King County has a really nice GIS system that's called King County IMAP. You can find it very easily just searching on Google for King County IMAP. Snohomish County has a nice system. It doesn't have as much functionality as IMAP, but it is called Scopy, SCOPI, and you can find it just by simply Googling Scopy. So I would like to look at both of these systems and show you some of the ways you can find information on them. So let's start actually with Scopy. So here is Scopy. You can see at the top of the website, it's linked from the website I had in the presentation. And it is Snohomish County specific. So you see down here, there's the border with King County, and there's no information below King County. Let's look at Edmonds because my office is in Edmonds. And as you zoom in, you'll see that all the individual parcels have outlines on them. So when you look at any of these parcels, you can click into individual parcels and you can get information specific to the parcels. There's also functionality up here on the upper left where you can search by parcel ID or address. It is helpful to turn on aerial imagery. Scopy only has aerial imagery going back to 2017, but let's click on the most recent imagery, and let's look at what we can find here. So I don't want to use a private parcel, so let's look right here. This is the Edmonds Park. This is a wonderful little park in downtown Edmonds. You see there are lot lines around it. Now, those are informational only. You shouldn't rely on those, but they're a pretty good indicator of where lot lines are for a parcel. And if you click on it, you'll see over on the left, information will pop up with the address and the parcel number. The parcel number is really important for finding documents. If they're not linked through here directly. But that's the parcel number, that's the tax parcel number for the Edmonds Park. And all of these properties, residential properties we see around it, you could click into them and get similar information. It will tell you the owner, it'll tell you the parcel ID, it'll tell you the address. When you click on that little button, there is this button called, this link called Property Account Summary. And this is a document I would suggest that you visit and you print out and you bring into your initial consult because it tells us a lot of good information about your property. Again, this is the Edmonds Park, so it tells us that the city of Edmonds owns it, has the parcel ID number. It has tax information about the property. And then down here, this is a park again. This is a city park, so there's no sales history. But if this was a private residence that we clicked into, this sales history would have a list of all of the sales from, owner to new purchaser, and it would link out to the deeds where you could click and get a copy of the deed that completed that transaction. So there's nothing here for the Edmonds Park, but this is an area where you can go and find a copy of your deed. Um, uh, and you can also, find tax information on here. And this is a great thing to print and give to your council at an initial meeting. And if you have a dispute with a particular neighbor, you can print off a copy of your neighbor's property count summary as well. Going back out to Scopy, uh, there's some functionality, not a ton of functionality in Scopy, but you see over here on the left, there's different buttons you can click. There's recent sales. This will show you what properties have sold recently. There's tax codes and appraisal information. But there's nothing that you can use to do things like measurements. Some systems have measurements where you can measure distance or area, which is important when there's a claim that someone has encroached on, someone else's property, a certain distance, and you want to know, we have a claim to the, eastern 20 feet of that property. Scopy isn't going to help you figure out, how much of the property the adjoining property you have a claim over, other than by showing you an aerial view, which you can, take a screenshot of this, save this imagery, and again, you can go back to, historical years and see if there are changes over the years that are relevant to your issue. So that is Scopy. Now I want to look at IMAP. This is King County's IMAP. Um, it is just like Scopy, but it is focused only on King County. If we scroll out here, I guess it doesn't have an outline right now, but it will only give us information for King County. So it has this little bar where you can put in the address, and you can put in an address. The trick is you don't put in the city. So just put in the street address. I'm going to go to another park so we don't get private information, but if you've ever seen a stunning view of downtown Seattle with Mount Rainier, that uh, image may have been taken from this park right here. It's called Cary Park in the Queen Anne area of King County in Seattle. So this is very much like IMAP, or excuse me, very much like Scopy, but this is King County's IMAP. And again, all the parcels have boundaries that you can't rely on, but they're pretty good generally in showing you the boundaries of the parcels. And just like the Scopy in Snohomish County, you can click on a parcel, and there's this assessor's report that you can link out to, and you can save a copy of this report and bring it in to your initial consult. And this property detail page is really the most interesting page that it links out to. This, again, this is a park, so there's not going to be much information, but you can see down here at the bottom in the sales history, the city of Seattle acquired the land where Cary Park is located in 1982, and you can link out to the deed. This will take you to the deed for by which the city of Seattle acquired the land where Cary Park is located. It also has the parcel number up here at the top, just like Scopy, and this is a great information page to print and bring into your initial consult. Now let's look at some further detail, because IMAP really has a lot more functionality than Scopy. So IMAP has all of these icons over here, they have imagery going back in time, back to 1936. You can click on it and it gets better in quality over the years, but you can click on different years and see what the land looked like at different times. And the reason this is important can be important when you have a adverse possession claim or prescriptive easement claim. You can often, you know, uh, find evidence of that through changes in the satellite imagery of the property. Now, we don't really have that here, but let's look at a difference. If we look at Cary Park in 2000, well, let's look out in 2021, there's this walkway through the middle of it. And if you go back to 2005, it didn't exist. So if you're analyzing a adverse possession claim or a prescriptive easement claim, and this was your property, you could look at this and say, okay, so here's some evidence that this access way was installed in the property sometime between 2005 and 2007. So you could save imagery of this. And actually, IMAP has a function where I'm not going to do it here, but you can actually print a PDF, and it will put it on a nice caption where it will show that this is from IMAP, and you can put it in where it will show the year that you have the imagery from. And I've had cases where, IMAP PDFs just like that are turned into exhibits and are used in court. So you could print out the 2005 showing that there's no walkway here in 2005. You could print out the 2007 and all the years after 2007 showing that there is a walkway. And that would be some evidence of use if you had a prescriptive easement claim. Um, so there's a lot more imagery options in IMAP than there is in King County Scopy. And I think that in the various counties, IMAP is the one with the most detail and the most functionality. I just want to show you one other thing a couple other things. IMAP also has all of these different layers that you can layer over. A lot of them won't be relevant for your claim, but they could be. So things like you can turn on contours, you can turn on ground water or flooding information or landslide areas, and you can print out, a map or an image that shows evidence of your property with these contours overlaid on them. The last thing I want to show you beyond the layers is this little icon, which is measurements. And you can do measurements in area or in distance through IMAP. And you can, make a page that can be printed out as a PDF that can track that. So we could measure across this pathway, and it's about 22 feet, you see up here on the right. And you could print that out as a PDF, and you would have some evidence that, okay, we have a access way that we've put in on the adjoining property, and it's in this location. The imagery shows it showed up in, between 2005 and 2007, and it's approximately 22 feet wide. So that can be very helpful. And if you're able to acquire all that information on your own, bring it into the initial consult, that's a lot of investigating that you can shift to yourself for free rather than paying your attorneys to do once you retain them. There's also, I'm not going to show it to you, but there's also a square footage function right here. And so these are great tools for obtaining documentary satellite imagery information, showing use over time, showing differences in use, and allowing you to do some rudimentary things like measurements. But what if you're not in King County where you have this enhanced functionality? There are some other things that you can use. One area where you can find historical imagery that I'd just like to show you quickly is Google Street View. So this is the stunning view. This is overcast or cloudy day or hazy day. So it doesn't look as nice here, but this is Cary Park. That's the view. And this is just Google Street View. And if you look right here where it's telling you where you are, you can see it says this photo, this imagery is from September 2025, so that's very recent. But it says see more dates. So you can save this picture to see what it, let's say you were interested in this building. You can have an image that you save that shows the building in September 2025, and then click down here, and there will be other years where it has imagery. So for this specific area, it has imagery back to 2008, and you can see historical building going on in this area. Now, this is really only helpful if the area that you're interested in is along a boundary line where Google can drive its cars to get imagery. But I've definitely seen property disputes where this Google Maps Street View information with historical imagery can be very helpful. So if you're in a county other than King County, and a county where there isn't a historical imagery function in the GIS map, this is an area where you can come to find that sort of information. Um, there are some others that we can use, some other systems, and I'd like to just get back to the presentation to show you some links to those. So there is, we can move ahead. In addition to Google Street View, Google Earth, there's an app you can download onto your desktop, or you can search it via the web. But Google Earth has historic imagery, often going back to the 80s. It can be really interesting. You can manipulate it. You can spin it to see, like, view the land from different directions. It also has its maps in more of a 3D view, so you can see a little more context. Sometimes it makes it a little harder to read or understand, but Google Earth can be very helpful for showing historical imagery that is relevant to a boundary dispute. And again, you can go in, and it has a function where you can print out a view of your property from whatever angle you want on a certain date, whatever dates they have available. And then the last two things I talk about um, are Daft Logic. Daft Logic, I think, is also a Google product, but it has these two websites for distance, measuring distance through satellite imagery, and measuring area through satellite imagery. I'm not going to show it to you here. I use it a decent amount in my practice and in my life. I'll tell you, it is not as nice as some other systems because it has a lot of ads built into it, so it can be a little cumbersome to look at. But if you're in a county that doesn't have any measurement tools through its GIS map, it can be very helpful, a helpful way to get measurements when you need them. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about are um, when you don't have your deed, you don't have your other recorded documents against your property, and you want to find those documents. And excuse me, document search systems in each county that I just call the county record search. So I literally just go to Google and I put in blank county record search. The system that most counties have is called Landmark. And here are the two uh, website addresses for King County's document search system and Snohomish County's document search system. Again, they are county specific, and so they'll have different functionality for different counties. And let's look at some examples of what they look like. So if we come back here, uh, close out of IMAP. Here is the King County document search system. This is, you see in the title, Landmark Web. This is what King County's system looks like. It has all of these things you can search by: party name, owner name, document. I really don't use this document, but if you want to search for a particular document, you can use that. Book and page. So book and page is good for finding older deeds or plat documents. So when land is subdivided into into a development, it's typically done through a document called a plat. And older ones are often recorded with a description of, plat. There's a name for the plat, and then it's in book 6 of plats on page 63. So you can use this tool right here to search by book and page. You can also search if you have a recording number for a document. Each document that's recorded in a system is given a unique recording number that's typically has the date embedded in it. If you have that recording number, you can search by recording number here. If you have the parcel ID number, so remember when we saw the properties um, on Scopy and on IMAP, there was parcel ID numbers. If you click on this parcel ID search, you can search by those numbers, and you'll find what this page brings you is all recorded documents that are recorded against that property. Now, there's a cutoff. Each county doesn't have all of its documents scanned back to the beginning of Washington State. Typically, they don't go back all that far, so maybe the 70s, and further back documents, you're likely not going to be able to find this way. But types of documents you can find here are deeds of trust, which are documents relating to your mortgage that you have on a property. Um, Recorded easement documents, express easements, plat records, surveys, tax liens, all sorts of documents like that that your attorney would want to see at an initial consult or soon thereafter can be found through this document search page. So this is King County's, and if you look at this is Snohomish County, you see there's just less options. It's the same page, but there are less options to search in Snohomish County. Um, but yeah, I'm not gonna do a search here. But if you went back and pulled those parcel numbers that we looked at for the different parks we looked at, you could punch in. Remember, Cary Park did have a deed from back in the 1980s when the city of Seattle obtained it. You could come here to the King County page, and it would uh, link you out to all the documents recorded against that parcel. So that's a way you could find that deed if you needed a copy but didn't have it. Okay, now let's move on, and we're getting to the end of the document resources that I want to talk about. But the next one, and let's go back to the presentation. The next one is section maps. So this is less helpful. This is less times that you're going to need the section map, but the section map information is very interesting. So uh, all of the land in Washington is essentially divided up into sections. I'm not sure how many there are in the state, but there's sections of the land, and the land that your home is on, it has a quarter section name, a section name, a township, and a range. And this information is often found in your legal description and in King County, and you can search it by county and you can get the county's map. So this is the county's map that shows all of the property lines that the county recognizes from its filing system. And here's the map for King counties. I only found King counties for us here today, but let's take a look at what that looks like, and let's actually show an example of what you can find there. So here is King County's quarter section search page. And you see each section is divided into four: a northeast, a northwest, a southeast, and a southwest. And then in King County, there are sections 1 through 36. There are townships 19 through 99, it looks like, and ranges 2 through 14. So if you have a legal description for your property, but you don't have a parcel ID number, which might be an odd scenario. But if you have that information from your legal description, you could punch in the quarter section, township, and range that you're looking to get a map for, or you could go and input the parcel number here. So let's put in the parcel number for Cary Park, which we looked at, which is 173,180,0300, and hit submit. Perfect. Well, this system is not working right now. I apologize for that. So this will give you, it looks much like a survey map created by a surveyor, but it will have the entire area where your property is located and all of the lot lines. It will have a disclaimer that the county doesn't want you to rely on this and you should retain your own surveyor, but it has the information that the county has. Uh, and it will have on it, sorry that we can't see it right now, but it will have on it all sorts of detail about the plats that are involved in that area, the different additions to the city. Cities annex more land, and they have names for the annexations. And so it gives you a lot of property detail about your own property and surrounding properties. And I find it to be very helpful when the system works, but unfortunately, it is not working right now. And so that is a good tool. I would suggest if you have a dispute, you can come here and there will be one for each county. You can find the quarter section map that includes your parcel and the parcel that you have the dispute with. And you can just save that and bring it into your initial consult, give it to your attorney, and that will help make it so your attorney doesn't have to do that search for you and charge you for that work. So that is the last resource that I wanted to talk about today. Uh, Final thoughts. All of these are informational only. These are great tools for investigating the background facts of a dispute. Ultimately, well, I mean, these aerial imagery, they can be used as exhibits, and they do get used as exhibits in court. But you probably also ultimately want to get a surveyor to do a legal survey and give you legal descriptions of the land that you're disputing. And they will make a map that you can present to the court with a legal description saying this is what we're fighting about. But for informational investigation purposes at the outset of a dispute, all of these resources that we looked at are great for informational purpose and getting your attorney up to speed on what's at issue. And all of that, if you can do this initial research before your initial consult, and you can bring in these documents, these legal documents, and relevant historical imagery showing the historical use and changes in use, it can really help minimize the initial cost of your representation, because it shifts that work to you doing for free rather than your attorney doing at the beginning of your case. So thank you for joining me today. Again, my name is Todd Cook. I'm a civil litigator in business disputes and real estate disputes, primarily at Beresford Booth. If you have any questions, here is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat with you. Thank you.